Hello. I feel like Mr. Rogers, I got to do like the beginning, the hello, neighbor. I am, anyway. Today, on Thursday, today's Thursday, I have a interview with Soul Thursday, and the topic is brotherhood beyond hopelessness. So they sent me some questions. And so what I am going to do is answer them one by one. And since no one is here, I am just going to read intellectual technology first. Because the intellectual technology in my book grounds everything I'm going to say after. So, intellectual technology, thought process, terminology, and transliterations. At the turn of the 20th century, African descendant peoples refused to participate in the perpetual smoldering of their dehumanization and made choices to segregate themselves behind the corporate veil of municipality. Few outlets exist to explore the conscious efforts of African descendants who sought autonomy through notions of God and regenerative agricultural practices in frontier spaces. If not distracted by the minstrel-like blackness in popular media, consciously, one may find significance in black sovereignty. Oh, hello there. Anthony, how you doing? How you doing, Tom? Fistoletto? Hi, Karen, Priscilla. I am doing this topic, but the first thing I'm going to do is read the intellectual technology from my book, Blackdom, New Mexico, The Significance of the Afro Frontier, 1900 to 1930. If not distracted by the minstrel-like blackness in popular media, one may find significance in black sovereignty that extended beyond notions of a fragile freedom. Undergirding the historical significance of black bodies in the borderlands, Blackdomites struck oil in the 1920s. Finding Blackdom oil was significant because Blackdom ascended to Afrotopia. Borderland Studies helps to inform this new black history. This narrative contains remixed intellectual technology to help the reader better absorb the methods, breadth, and scope used to reintroduce a story to people who thought they knew Blackdom, and introduce a narrative to people who have never heard of Blackdom, in an effort to override a systematically imposed ignorance blanketing the United States and the world. I intentionally quarantine the reader to focus on the material presented. Black people was a notion developed by those attempting to craft a narrative of white superiority, as well as project the normalcy of white supremacy using popular media. As Europeans sought to colonize indigenous places and spaces, they created creature-like cognitive relationships between skin color, labor, and personhood. The history of whiteness reveals an association between the desired signifier of white people and the antithesis of black people. The manufacture of blackness in popular media has distorted reality for people of African descent and the identities they subscribed to. For a more cogent reading of my work, below I define black and all the major corresponding derivatives. Due in part to the soul murder of some black folks, this book contains material that may appear foreign. So that's the beginning of my intellectual technology. So I'm going to read a little bit and I'm going to answer some questions that I have. Let's see. I'm looking at the comments. No comments yet. Okay. So the interview question for Dr. Timothy E. Nelson, I am going to let the computer read it to me. Okay. So let's see. How am I going to answer this question live? So I have a live thing later, so I'm practicing for the live.
Manhood, history, and identity. What drew you to the history of Blackdom, New Mexico, and how does it relate to modern black manhood? Once into my study in Blackdom.
So the question is, what drew me to the history of, let me put this out in front of me. Put this in front of me. Okay. All right, there we go. Better? You can see me? Okay. All right. Okay. So I can see the computer. All right. What drew you to the history of Blackdom, New Mexico, and how does it relate to modern black manhood? This is a complicated question, even though it's just, about, how I got to Blackdom, New Mexico as a research topic and my black manhood in this case, because it's asking me. Once I began to study Blackdom, New Mexico, I wanted to see the level of ambition I have today. Too often, the history that we read is about people back then. But I wanted to see if the ambition back then was anything like the ambition of black folks today. And what that does is it unites the idea that black people can be ambitious. Well, if black people can be ambitious, they're definitely human, right? And so even though that says like, of course, black people are human. Yes, but under the rubric of race, are they? We have to really consider that. So my answer to the question of, what drew me to the history of Blackdom, New Mexico, part of it is I didn't end up this way, right? People sacrificed for me to be in school. People sacrificed for me to exist. Because as black people, generally you have come from a certain caste in society. And so when I think about black, I don't think about a race of people. I think about a caste of people. So for me, the black people who have survived all of, well, kind of what you're seeing now, but worse, definitely worse, with no repercussions, they sacrificed so that I could actually go on this journey, right? It's a privilege to know who you are and where you come from, right? The history evoked me recognizing the importance of farming. So Blackdom, New Mexico was a colony of black folks built on farming, right? Not industrial production, but farming. So they had this notion of it being like a garden. And anytime black folks see garden, especially those of the church, they think of Garden of Eden, they think of paradise, they think of promised land, right? Or it actually evokes that consciousness, which comes mostly out of the church, which is where a lot of people get their confidence. The history grounded me, the history of Blackdom, New Mexico grounded me and my spirit in an intellectual space that was conducive for growth, right? So first I'm talking about farming, but in order for a person to grow, they can kind of learn things from that farming, right? The ideas of Blackdom translated into a physical existence, right? They had to have the idea of Blackdom first, and then it became a physical existence, which we all can learn because we all want to manifest, right? And if you want to manifest, that's bringing what's in your thoughts and feelings into a reality. When I began composting in real life, I began to use that as a philosophical tool so that I can compost my own thoughts, right? So in composting, things smell, they're decomposing. So imagine your thoughts. Imagine all the thoughts you've had all of your life. And you start getting rid of those that you no longer believe, right? It turned into something else. So, for example, if you're older, right, if you're a grown up now, Santa Claus shouldn't be a part of your everyday conscious living, right? You're not waiting for the 25th of December in order to get your present from Santa Claus. So composting those thoughts that we had as a child is kind of evoked as I am physically composting actual dirt, actual grounds from the coffee maker, right? And so in that composting, I use that philosophically, and like in composting, things die. So my black manhood kind of dies, right? Now, what comes after black manhood? What comes after black manhood? I'm finding out. I'm finding out. And that's really what the book is about. That's why I start with the intellectual technology. And so I'm going to go back to it, and I'm going to start with the definitions that I have because we're already now into black. Black, when referencing people of African descent, refers to the intersection of people and politics. It's not really people, it's the intersection of people and politics, because those politics gets involved, and now we have to determine who is black and who isn't. Hey, thank you for liking. Thank you for liking. I appreciate it. Because I know what I'm talking about usually isn't all that interesting. I do it for myself because I like to be prepared. So I use lives in order to practice answering questions, especially when I am usually in my head. I'm usually writing, I'm usually doing articles, so I don't even really look at myself. That's why, sometimes I'm jarred by what I see in the camera, because I'm like, oh, wow, I have dreads. I need to shave, right? Like I start doing that. I start getting self-conscious. So I'm on here on, hey, MAGA, how you doing? So I'm on here practicing a live interview that's going to happen. So I'm going to give you the question, and then I'm going to give you my answer real quick. What drew you to the history of Blackdom, New Mexico, and how does it relate to modern Black manhood? That's a hard question, but the way I approach it is by talking about Blackdom. Okay, so in studying Blackdom, I'm able to see the ambitions of people in history. And that in itself kind of undergirds what I might consider to be Black manhood. But in reality, the Black manhood that I had in my head dies. And so I start to, as I start to learn from history and start learn from the mistakes of people in history. Okay, so that's the relationship between the two. So I'm going to go to the next question. How did Black men in historical frontier communities maintain a sense of identity and purpose despite systematic oppression? Well, past the 98th meridian, okay, colonization heated up, around the 1830s, 1840s. By 1848, at the end of the U.S.-Mexico War, American frontierism takes over Mexican frontierism. So the place that we call the West, past the 98th meridian, you have Mexico's northern frontier. Because remember, Mexico used to extend up to basically the line where Washington State is, I think. To answer this question about historical frontier communities and how Black people maintain their identity, I boil it down to ministers, military men, and Black Freemasons. Now, of course, there were other groups in the frontier communities in the American West after the 1850s. But these three institutions, the church, the Masonic lodges, and the military installations, were really how Black manhood was shaped in the West, but also how identity in general was reshaped. Because remember, a lot of these people have been touched by various institutions, if not the major institution of slavery. So coming out of slavery, institutions like the church, the Masonic Lodge, and military were ways that people could learn to read, write, and reintegrate into free society. But I want to emphasize that Black is not simply a race, it's a shared condition. And so you can also add into Black indigenous communities, particularly past the 98th meridian. Well, if you do that, then you're also including Mexicans, Mexicanos, Chicanos, Latinos, Chicanx. You're getting into a situation where that third space that we pretend doesn't exist because we go Black-white. Either you're Black or you're white. Well, are Mexicans white? Can they be white? Particularly because of the one-drop rule? The answer is no. But they try. So the shaping of a Black identity in frontier communities comes from a shared existence. The Assad, I think that's Assad. I don't know you. Can you give me more information and then I'll let you join? Unless that was on accident. Thank you for the gift. Stephanie, I appreciate that. So yes, I'm answering questions. I have a live that's coming later tonight at about 8. But I'm walking through these questions and my answers because I want to give good answers. It's going to be live, but I like to practice even though it's live. That's the secret, y'all, is to practice before you go live, and then that way when you do the live, it's at least something that you can recognize. Because when I'm in live, I can't tell if I'm saying something that makes sense or doesn't. Like right now, I can't tell if I'm making sense. So that's why it's really nice to get hearts and gifts. So thank you, Stephanie, in particular. What is the gift? How do I? Let me see. Invitation sent. Oh, I sent an invitation. I'm sorry. You don't have to come in. I'm literally just answering questions, and I don't really know how to use live. That's the other part. I kind of use it as my sounding board or my practice, particularly like because I got to answer questions later tonight. Okay, so
Oh, there we go.
hello.
Hi, I'm sorry. I wasn't. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Me? No, Kim. I don't know.
You don't have to
Wait
get
a minute.
all.
I'm sorry. Wait a minute.
You
I
can
have to.
decline.
I
I
actually
just
was driving
invited
and
you
just
to be able
listening
to
to
give.
you.
Huh?
I
Hello.
gotta take this out. Okay. There we go. That should do it. Hopefully. Okay. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? You just stepping in the house or what?
Oh, I'm sorry. What did you say?
You just stepping in the house?
I'm just picking up my daughter, and I was waiting for her to get off of work, and she just did. And I
Oh,
was
okay.
listening to you. I was
Oh,
listening
okay.
to you, and it was interesting to me. So you were making sense.
Thank you. I am doing an interview today with Soul Thursday, and I've had other conversations with the group, and to the topic they wanted me to talk about was brotherhood beyond hopelessness, and because we try to get black men to be more vulnerable out in public.
Absolutely,
You know what I'm saying?
absolutely. Yep.
Uh, so it's difficult. It's difficult to do that. So we've set up these situations where we can be, and so that's why I got on the live. And so thank you.
No, no, it makes sense. I was particularly enjoying where you pointed out that Mexico used to stretch up into what we now consider America, because I think
Mhm.
so often when we're talking about oppression of other people, black and brown,
Yeah.
we don't consider that America was not America before colonization. It belonged to the peoples that were already here and still does. So when we're living on stolen land. So I
Yep.
really appreciated that reminder.
And one of the things that I also try to remind people is that it's not just quote white folks who are the reason why indigenous people are displaced.
Right.
It's
Yes.
also African descendants too are why indigenous peoples are displaced. And
Yes.
so that's kind of where the research that I do, why people ask me to talk, because I try to get into the fact that, well, okay, we talk about white colonizers, but what about black folks who have been colonizing for 500 years in a place
Right.
we call Mexico?
Exactly.
Mexico used to extend as high as Washington state, right? So black folks have been the problem too.
Yes, yes. I was shocked to learn while I was in college, when I first started going to college, that um, we participated in the oppression of the original people here, and it blows my mind. I suppose when you're trying to come up out of where you were at, you're trying not to be oppressed. You sometimes it talks about the danger of sometimes becoming the very thing that you hate.
This is what I think. Black folks are having to come to grips with at the moment. Because think about how media glorifies what Black folks like. We may listen to Snoop Dogg, but we're not going to listen to Snoop Dogg.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? And I
Yes, I
think
do.
that often gets missed in the fact that he was a drug dealer.
Right.
50 Cent was a
Right.
drug dealer. Jay-Z
Exactly.
was a drug dealer. These people poisoned our society,
Right.
right? But at the same time, we have given a reprieve because of, like you were saying, because we're coming out of an oppression. We kind of, I don't know, we give excuses on some level. But at what point do we have to account for that?
Exactly. And take accountability because
Yeah, yeah,
one
and
of the
that's what
one,
I.
yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, no, I'm sorry. I was just saying one of the things that I try to impress upon the folks in the community and family members is that in the Black community, if we do not begin to focus upon us as a people and the things that we have to heal from, because we are traumatized people. And if we don't begin to focus upon what we need to heal in our own healing and stop focusing so much outwardly and begin to heal inwardly and taking those steps, really diving in to take those steps to heal.
Now, I agree. I think that healing happens simultaneously because we have injured another community. We just talked about the indigenous community, right?
Right.
So at some point, we have to account for that and
Yes.
what has happened to us. We thought we were the victims the whole time.
Right. Right.
So if you realize, oh shoot, my grandfather was or great grandfather was a buffalo soldier rounding
Right.
up insurrectionist Indians. Uh,
Mhm.
when am I gonna atone for that? If I'm telling white people to atone, you get what I'm
Right.
saying? If we're gonna be honest.
Yes.
And
Oh,
I think
yes.
that would
Absolutely.
actually go a long way to healing.
Hmm.
Because once you can see that it's been done to other people, you stop feeling sorry for yourself, number one.
Hmm.
Number two, you realize, oh, you can't just heal. There has to be a truth and a reconciliation amongst narratives, amongst concepts, right?
Yes.
How,
Yes.
how do we engage Mexicanos? How do they engage us? Okay, that's one way. But how do we engage other populations in that way? So, yes, we do have to do our own healing, but we have to realize that we have to be a part of other people's healing too, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. And I think that's part, you're right. That's part and parcel of how you heal. If you're not also giving out the same thing that the positive, I mean, because we do give out trauma, you know, so, we have to be certain that we are giving out healing and also in connecting. But the thing that I do worry about is that we have a hard time connecting with one another. And I think it's because we don't know where we came from. We don't truly know our own history um, as a whole. There are some of us that do, but as a group and a whole, we don't understand who we truly are and are unable to take on the power of that if you don't know where you come from.
I agree. And I would say we would have to start with who is we, right?
Yes.
Because,
Yes.
I am currently in New Mexico. Okay. And so indigeneity is a really big thing. And so I went
Yes.
over to Arkansas to do one of these lectures. And I really saw Cherokee differently because I was driving through and I had a thought, and it came at the same time I'm looking at the Cherokee Nation. It's like,
Hmm.
oh, okay, so there's an indigeneity that is not being projected in Black communities. So, what does that
Hmm.
mean when we talk about healing? Because now we have to talk about a healing that isn't just an African, it's also an indigenous healing. See, we talked about
Yes.
indigenous being outside of us, and now we got to talk about the indigenous that's inside of us. Do you see how that's a
Yes.
lot of healing? That's 500 years of healing.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's a process that, you have to do other things as well, but it's also a process. I'm My concern is that I don't know if we have started that process. I think in some areas, maybe going forward, but I'm very concerned that we're not acknowledging the trauma, and we're not acknowledging the trauma that we've done both to ourselves and to others.
Let me
Because
let me let me
hurt
re,
people hurt people.
let me relieve some of your angst. 92% and 70, they keep saying 72 or 78. It was
Right,
89 when I looked
right,
at it last. But
right.
my point is that should give you some solace. That should give you some
It
uh,
does. It does.
idea of how together we actually are. Like,
It does. Yeah.
because we talk a lot of shit. Like, as
Yeah.
people, we talk a lot of shit, and so a lot of times, again, people don't know. Sometimes we just talking shit. Like, we
Right.
just talking, and
Right.
so and so I think we're together a lot more than people are giving it credit. It also
Right.
feeds a certain economy, and
Mm-hmm.
with that kind of content, you can get a lot more viewers. But I am going to stress 92% and 89%. And that right there should give you an idea. Now, I do know black men who voted for Trump and who are still riding for Trump, but these are
Right.
broken men.
Right. Right.
They're broken.
Right.
They're
Yeah.
broken, and they have no idea of why, other people matter. They see
Hmm.
themselves through the lens of selfishness. They're the drug dealers. They're just not dealing drugs. They're dealing politics.
Right. I think, even, I don't know if it's better or worse, but the withdrawal. Then there are those who
Ooh.
decided not to do anything at all.
Mm.
There's the ones who, yep, actively voted, and then there's the ones who didn't vote anything.
I can't.
And
I
I'm not
can't.
talking about just men, but there were women as well.
Yeah. I can't really fault them for not voting. I mean, we got we. I think the Democrats are having to come to the reality that they have let us down over and over again. Like,
Yes.
you know, we can see that these, you know, executive orders. We can see that they're going to be challenged in court, and most of them will be um, thrown away or thrown out, and people will
Right.
be reinstated. They will get their jobs back. Most of them. But we see that if a president has the political will,
Mm-hmm.
they can do what they said that they were going to do. Or they could at least put so much pressure out there that people are talking about the thing. Because you can't say that this dude didn't
Right.
is not doing what he said he was going to do.
Absolutely. Yep. He said he was going to rip it apart, and that's exactly what he's doing.
And we said people were going to die because of it, and people are dying because of it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yep.
So
He
that
absolutely is.
So that
Yeah.
92 and 89 had some kind of idea of what was going on. So it's not like unknown to people, right?
Right. Right.
So I think that healing that you and I are describing, um,
Yes.
I think part of it includes the institution building. I think we as a collective, 92 and 89, have figured out a way of a distance between healed and unhealed. We figured out that
Yes.
distance.
Yes.
I think building
Yes.
institutions will go a long way to finishing the job, right?
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
we used to could
Yep.
go to the church and then get a holy dance on, and then we have completed that healed dream.
Mm.
But a lot of people are church hurt these days. A lot of people,
Listen, don't get me started on the church. As a preacher, don't get me started.
as a prophesied preacher who was meant to be a preacher, I know what you're saying.
Yes. Yes.
I think the church has not evolved enough to deal with
Yes.
the current healing that people need.
I, I mean, I'm seeing some elements of them waking up, but it's slow. I'm seeing some elements of a fire being lit. It's slow. I oh, and so it's like, okay, I'm picking my head in. Have y'all caught up yet? Are you there yet? No. Okay, I'll be back. Uh, it's
Uh-huh.
it's
I
a lot
yeah.
of that.
Yeah, I've had to do that even with my home church. I
Hmm.
am in just enough, right? Like I'm
Right.
online, I'm
Right.
getting the message, but I can see why I'm not
There.
physically in church, right?
Yes.
I can
Talk
listen
about
and
it.
go, oh shoot, that's why I
Yeah, talk about it. Exactly.
left.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
but
And
but the,
and
but go ahead.
no, it's a love, but it's a love that we love them, but we understand also that, listen, I can't wait on you. Time is now. We got to move, and that's where I'm at. Is that I like I said, peek in and keep it moving because they haven't caught up yet. God help us. And so
Yeah. Yeah,
I
and in some ways that's kind of good. It's kind of
yes,
good in that there is a place that people can run to, and it is a place, right? It's gonna have a ritual that this is gonna happen. Morning worship, Sunday school,
right,
Bible study,
right,
these little things, believe it or not, can kind of, when you're hopeless, right?
yeah,
That
right,
regimen can kind of get you back on your feet. So that's the other
absolutely,
part. When I wasn't
absolutely.
in a healing phase, and when I was in my
I know what you mean.
when I was in my other phase,
Uh-huh. Yep.
the
Mm-hmm.
regimen of going to church, even online, got me out of the trajectory and onto a
Right.
more hopeful
Mm-hmm.
trajectory.
Mm-hmm.
So
Now,
yeah, I think
one
the
question,
institutions are
and I'm going to let you go mainly because we're going to get out and get
okay.
something to eat. But
Okay.
I have one question for you.
Yes.
Um, do you? I see it says brotherhood beyond hopelessness, and my question is, do you think that patriarchy has done its number on men? Because, like any oppressive system, it not only hurts the people that it's oppressing, but the people that are doing the oppressing. Do you think patriarchy has done the brokenness, has helped in the brokenness of the men that are in their hopeless state right now?
So, how much time you got?
I got at least what, 10 minutes?
Oh, okay, okay. All I need is a few minutes.
Okay, okay.
There are a couple pieces, and it's hard for me to hold on to them all together without typing because I'm used to writing. But um, when it comes to patriarchy and black men, um, we had a poisoned patriarchy. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so the patriarchy we had 100 years ago was poisoned.
Right.
Okay, because they built a patriarchy so that men check men. You get
Mm.
what I'm saying? There's
Yep.
no check on the man who's doing the bullshit today.
Right.
So this is why, like, when I describe the history that I'm talking about, I bring up three institutions: military, ministers, and Freemasons.
Mm.
That institutional intersection is what helped fully develop a patriarchy
Mm-hmm.
in Black America. But it wasn't until the 1970s that we saw how dangerous that combination was. Not just
Mm.
that those institutions, but the patriarchy was, because of what happened. You had black elites deciding that their brain drain was going to go away when we got integrated. So
Right.
integration separated black folks from the people who were teaching them.
Hmm. Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Yes, the patriarchy then was vulnerable to the poison of white supremacy, and that poison included heroin in the 70s,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Crack.
cocaine in the 80s, and then crack cocaine throughout that time. But you get what I'm
Right.
saying? So that
Mm-hmm.
poison literally was poison. And now it's on to meth and whatever else they got cooked up, fentanyl.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But because I had people in my community, black men looking at me in my face, telling me, I don't care how much money they make it over there, you're not going to stand on that corner and deal drugs and think you're going to have some kind of agency in this community. Do you get what I'm saying? Like there was a check,
Yes.
but
Yes.
that check fell apart. Why? Because
Right.
people like me moved away. The drug
Mm-hmm.
dealers got to stay, or they went to jail, or they were dead, or now the gang is growing. Do you get what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say that the patriarchy is what fully affected black masculinity. I would say the poison patriarchy is really what turned um, a because the patriarchy black folks had was anemic because it could easily be destroyed by a white man. Do you see what I'm saying? So it wasn't a real
Yes.
patriarchy.
Right.
There was a higher power than that patriarchy, and that was white patriarchy. And then
Right.
that white patriarchy, when we can go on and on about the hierarchy.
Sure.
So the black patriarchy, until it was poisoned, produced things like black produced things like okay, what is that? Produced things like Nicodemus, Kansas, Allensworth. In other words, these were communities where people who were formerly enslaved could go build a life, homestead, and have community and live outside the scope of white supremacy.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Like living beyond
Yes.
freedom and
Yes.
into sovereignty. So the patriarchy is the only thing that led us to that sovereignty.
Right.
However, it was poisoned by money, sex, drugs, violence, and everything else that affects human beings. So I guess that was a long answer, right? To ask.
I appreciate it. I wish I had the time because I had some things that that were on my mind, such as that I don't. When you said patriarchy kind of led us to be able to do that type of thing, I don't know that I completely agree there, mainly because I think that we men and women in our
Yes.
interactions with each other was so you know we equalize things in a manner
Fully.
that I don't think white patriarchy even understood.
Fully.
And so the strength of we took strength from one another in
Yes.
in a different way. And I don't so now I'm seeing I what you're calling as poison patriarchy. Absolutely, I'm seeing that on the rise. Right, okay, that was
I'm with you fully. See, we were only talking about the patriarchy, but I didn't talk
right.
about the matriarchy. The
Okay,
patriarchy in black communities wouldn't exist without the matriarchy.
right, right.
You don't have a patriarchy in black society without a strong matriarchy. But that
True.
matriarchy is so supported by
Right.
what we call the patriarchy. That's what I mean by the
And
poison.
vice
See,
versa.
the
Right.
poison was black men thinking that they were the ones who should be catered to. Just because she gave you the big piece of chicken doesn't mean you are the king that can just order people around. You get that piece of chicken because she gave it to you.
Right.
She
Right.
prepared it for you. And
Right.
so now you have to be humble enough to go get your ass in there and go do the dishes. You get what I'm saying?
Yes, I
Like
do.
that's why
Yes,
I'm
I
saying
do.
about patriarchy. Like patriarchy understood it didn't exist without matriarchy. But the
Right.
poison patriarchy made it be like, I gotta get what I get on my gun. I'm gonna get my on my
Right.
own and I'm a individual and that's that
Mm-hmm.
poison stuff. But the
Right.
real patriarchy that black folks had was undergirded by black women. It's just like the church. It's undergirded by black women. Same thing with Blackdom, New Mexico. This book I wrote,
Right.
undergirded by black women of all types, not just the
Oh.
church ladies, including the
Okay.
prostitutes.
Right. Right. Right.
The largest landowner in Blackdom Oil Company was a madam, a bootlegger, a gunslinger. Like
Mm-hmm.
anyway, so yeah, I know you got to
No,
go,
no,
but
no. I want to just tell you how much I appreciate it, and thank you for giving out the knowledge to the community. That is wonderful. Definitely admire that. So, brother, keep on doing what you do.
Thank you for
And
joining.
everyone, absolutely. Thank you for inviting me. You have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thank you. So how do we get out of here? Okay, let me see. Uh, okay. Oh, okay. You know how to do it. All right, cool. All right, so back. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was delightful. That was my first time actually being on a live and someone coming in. So I was a little nervous. I'm sweating under the arms a little bit. So anyway, what am I doing? I have this thing tonight, and they sent me preparing questions, and so now I am simply going through my answers and then talking you through my answers, and that will allow me to practice. And then I'm going to take my break. All right, so I got through like two questions, and then but that was good. All right, what lessons from the Afro frontier can help Black men today overcome feelings of hopelessness? Starting with, if you feel hopeless and you're a Black person, then you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Then you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Now, it's what you do next that's important. Because again, the system wasn't set up for Black people to be hopeful. And so I just understand, I complicate the notion of Black, but we're just going to go with Black. Juneteenth, 1865, Granger's order wasn't about hope. And if you don't know what Granger's order is, Google it and you'll have a better understanding. Granger's order wasn't about hope. It was about a fragile freedom given to the formerly incarcerated. Granger's order was the announcement that all enslaved peoples are free now. Have you ever read Granger's order? Do you know what it actually says? Granger's order. I'm going to give you some of it just to give you an idea so you understand that your freedom wasn't about hope. So when we're talking about hopelessness, you're talking about what the system was set up to do was to make Black people run out of hope and run back to the plantation or the slave institution. The Afro frontier was an option for sovereignty. That was preached in churches and backed by military personnel and played out each day in Masonic lodges. Quote, the freedmen are advised to remain at their present homes and work for wages. They are informed that they will not be allowed to collect at military posts and that they will not be supported in idleness, either there or elsewhere, end quote. That is part of Granger's order. Now, you as Black men, we as Black men, were never meant to feel hope. We were meant to get wages. That is why Obama could sell hope and change. Hope without change will provide you hopelessness. Start with hopelessness and build using faith. I don't mean church. I mean, this is where I acknowledge a actual relationship with God, but faith begins with you on the inside. So faith doesn't even have to be Christian. And I'm talking to black folks. Other people know that, but I'm talking to black folks. Faith. If you're hopeless, have faith. Faith in yourself, faith in the process, faith in something outside of yourself. Now, what you put your faith in will also determine if you end up back hopeless. So that's why you got to watch where your faith goes. But I would begin with faith, because to be black and have hope is a privilege in a system designed to create more hopelessness. Feel what I'm saying? I know this isn't a topic most people like to discuss, but it's real. Did that answer the question? Overcoming feelings of hopelessness. How can you learn that from blackdom? I didn't really answer that question very well. I'm going to have to add something to that and discuss blackdom. Oh, okay, I got it. So, to answer the question, how to overcome hopelessness or feelings of hopelessness, how to draw from this particular history, they were formerly enslaved. How hopeless is it when you're enslaved? So drawing on what they did, building a town, running it themselves, not depending on anyone outside of their community, it provides us a platform to evaluate our hopelessness. I'm going to take a break.